El Paso's Animal Services Department is seeking a new director, again. Whoever the city hires next year will be the sixth person to lead the city's Animal Services Department since 2015. But why has there been so much turnover? And what could a new leader do to improve the animal adoption rate in El Paso and the condition of animals in the city generally? Public comment sessions during city council meetings in downtown often include one or more residents criticizing the city's Animal Services Department. Critics say the city's department should be doing more to help strays and keep animals off the street, instead of relying largely on the community to foster stray animals. The Animal Services Department's budget grew to $16.2 million this year, compared with about $8 million in 2022. Since 2015, when the city's shelter began shifting to a no-kill shelter, the city is euthanizing fewer animals. But plenty of residents still have concerns about the shelter's operations. For today's show, I'll talk with El Paso Matters senior reporter Elida Perez about some of the recent history of El Paso's Animal Services Department and what to know about the city's search for a new director. Before I talk with Elida, I want to mention that this El Paso Matters podcast episode is sponsored by Tani, Acosta, and Chaparro, truck crash and injury attorneys. Their team of local, seasoned trial attorneys are ready to help if you've been injured in a crash. Now, on to our conversation. Elida, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So to start, what can you tell us about the city's search for a new Animal Services Department director and all the turnover the department's seen over the last decade?
So this search is probably going to be a little different than in the past because it seems as though the city manager will lean a little more towards being open for community feedback. That's not something that really was done in the past. Since the city manager hires these positions like executives and department heads and whatnot, it's generally up to the city manager in the city manager form of government that we're in. They have the discretion to do whatever they want, in essence, when it comes to selecting that individual or making that hire. It seems like Dion Mack is kind of shifting from that just a tad by being open to getting feedback based on this petition that was going around. But before we get into that, the Animal Services Department wasn't even its own department until I believe it was 2015, 2016.
Oh, wow.
Prior to that, it was under environmental services.
Okay.
And the head of environmental services was Ellen Smythe. But
so it was kind of folded in with like the trash collection department, basically.
Yes, in essence. Around 2015, I believe, is when there was this shift with the prior mayor and council. Oscar Leeser was mayor at the time, where I think there was a lot of community concerns about the shelter and their no-kill rate was kind of non-existent at the time. They were just euthanizing pets as they needed to.
Wow.
No-kill wasn't too much of a discussion until that year or so. So there was a shift where they wanted to move towards a no-kill status. Within that process, they created Animal Services as its own department and had an interim in place. His name was Kurt Fenstermacher, and he had been the assistant director of environmental services. Okay. So now he's interim animal services director.
But wasn't necessarily like an animal welfare guy or a lot of background in that area?
Not too much, from what I recall. Now, this was quite a long time ago. I was working for the El Paso Times when this unfolded. But yeah, so I've been kind of keeping track of it off and on for years. The community really liked Fenstermacher and what he was doing, and they could see some positive changes unfolding with what they were trying to do. But there started to be some community concern because there was the interim, he was interim, and like maybe 1 or 2 years passed and they hadn't hired a permanent director. Now we're under former city manager Tommy Gonzalez at the time. And so there started to become, the animal welfare advocates started to raise questions about like, why haven't you hired a permanent director? So all of a sudden, Kurt Fenstermacher gets sent back to environmental services after the city manager at the time formed a task force for making changes to the animal services shelter. That was at the time led by Paula Powell. So she served as interim and then was named director. She served in that role for a couple of years and then retired, went on to somewhere else. I think she moved away from El Paso. She had prior to that, she'd been the, I believe it was in Parks and Recreation. So she's serving as animal services director. There's still some changes being made and whatnot. Then she leaves. So then Ramon Herrera becomes interim. He had been in marketing before and had served on the Animal Services Task Force. That was kind of a tricky time because then suddenly we're in the pandemic, and that was interesting for everybody.
Yeah.
But we can get more into that right now as far as, interims and directors go, right? So then he served again just a short time frame. Then Terry Kempschel was hired. He, again, just a few years. Now we're on to an interim, Michael Watchman. So it's one of those positions that even though we hadn't interviewed Terry Kempschel yet, even he told El Paso Inc. how difficult the job really is. And I think that plays a lot into it. He had been with the fire department before becoming the animal services director. So, I mean, if you look back at all these prior interims and directors, I don't know that we can say that any one of them had full shelter experience. So maybe that has something to do with how tricky it is, how difficult the job is, because it is a position with the city that is under a lot of public scrutiny. The animal advocates in this community are very passionate about how animals are treated in El Paso, and especially when it comes to shelter services and what the city is doing, what the city is not doing, what they see out in the streets. So it's not an easy role.
Yeah, and I mean, you just laid out your experience of kind of following this and covering it for 10 years or more. I guess I just wonder if you can kind of describe some of the criticisms you've heard over the years of the city's animal services department. It seems like the pandemic was a challenging time, but the challenges go further back beyond even the pandemic. And so I'm just wondering, what are some of the criticisms you've heard over the years?
So yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of criticism over the years, and it kind of like fluctuates. But some of the main things that we've heard of, like there was a time where some former employees or employees at the time were taking photos and videos of like just the conditions of the shelter, overcrowding, really dirty kennel spaces where there was feces all over the place, and these dogs are trapped in these small spaces with a bunch of, waste. Yeah. Those kinds of things, injuries, like because of the overcrowding, fights and that sort of thing. There's been criticism about, stray dogs not being picked up, or when somebody finds a stray dog and tries to get it to the shelter will not take it, or they say we're full, I'm sorry, hang on to it, or try to find its owner yourself. That sort of thing has raised a lot of concern.
Putting the pressure on the community basically to solve the issue.
Yes. So instead of taking in those animals, people are left with like the choice of if I take in this animal and I can't find its owner, then what do I do with this animal? So that has been a big concern. Even with cats, both cats and dogs, there's people periodically, just really, really raising concerns about how animals are being tracked in the shelter as well. That's been another thing that has come up over the years. There have been concerns that animals are being lost, or, maybe they're not reporting properly. Yeah, I mean, it really runs the gamut. And then, even the employees themselves, like there's been concern about like low pay, like they can't retain staff because the pay is not great. And It's a really difficult job, so geez, it's a
So
really long list of concerns.
it's a wide range. I wonder if you can just go back a little bit and talk about the decision to implement the no-kill shelter approach. I think around 2015, right, is when that started. I just wonder, what was the sort of thinking and motivation back when the city decided to do that?
From what I recall, I think it was a period of time when, again, they were just, maybe it was, now I'm having to go back into the way back machine here. But I remember the council at the time and the mayor and even the city manager were all realizing that, there was kind of a national push to go towards no-kill, for more shelters to reach no-kill status.
I see.
And I think, again, the advocates in our community were really pressuring the council at the time. And so I think the timing was right for those voices to be heard, to where the council and the city was like open to move in that direction. And so, they started to put together a plan and everything. And I think it was about $1 million that they had asked for to put in the first round of reforms to get to no-kill. And that was back in, 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think the timing was right and everybody was kind of on the same page.
But do you think that approach now led, maybe being more humane, but is now why there's more pressure on the community that, hey, all right, you guys don't want us to euthanize the pets, so you step up, community, and take in more pets, foster them, et cetera, right? Do you think that's kind of been the result of going to a no-kill shelter?
I don't know that had a lot to do with it. I think that somewhere along the line, after a few different changes in leadership, they started a pilot program to try to bring in more community participation or whatever, and I can't remember the specific year, but somewhere along those lines, and maybe just prior to the pandemic, is when that kind of effort started.
Yeah.
And it's been mentioned before that they went on this HOS program model, which is more community oriented, where, if you find a stray, then work with the social networks and everything to try to get it from even entering the shelter space. And I think that's where, this disconnect has started, and that's kind of poured over to the community is now like, okay, we can't keep doing this. Like, something has to shift.
Yeah, and I think almost 700 citizens have signed this petition to urge the city to hire a sort of qualified animal services director who has experience in animal welfare issues, I guess. And so I just wonder what you can tell us about this petition and the influence it's having on the search for a new animal services department director.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but over the last at least year, that there's been an increase in animal welfare advocates showing up to City Hall on their regular council days, and signing up for public comment. Now, that's not new. That has happened periodically over the years. But I can say that in this last year, there's been a growing number of people coming to show up to really highlight this is a problem, something's got to change, and so that's kind of where the former director retired, or said he was going to retire or whatever. There had only been more and more people showing up and talking about this and really talking about his leadership. Now, I haven't had the chance to talk with him directly, but we're kind of in the works on that to hear his perspective, right? But when it was announced that they were going to start looking for a new director, people were really concerned that the same thing is going to happen here. Like, nobody's going to get a say in it. Somebody is going to be moved from somewhere else, and what they're really wanting is just, it's kind of simple at its core. It's just to hire somebody qualified.
With experience handling stray animals and so forth. Yeah.
Maybe the ideal person has worked as an animal services director in the past. I don't know that person exists. I mean, it seems like it's a difficult job to fill. But the fact that, so many people are signing on to this and the city actually responded. When I was taking a look at the petition, City Manager Dion Mack actually, responded to it. Now, I think that's because the petition was initially aimed at, the mayor and council, but the mayor and council do not make this hire. So her response to the group was, or to the petition was that, like the city manager hires this position and whatnot, and they're trying to, do a national search or whatever. But that apparently resonated. The petition resonated because the city manager said that, acknowledged it and said that, based on that they will try to bring in some more community feedback as they're going through the process. Which is different because in the past somebody gets put in, and I don't know that we paid too much attention about the hiring process before, but we're in different times now, so there's different leadership roles coming and going here, so it's one where we need to pay closer attention because this is one of those departments that is just really crucial.
Yeah. And you wrote that the search will begin in January, is that right?
Well, I believe, no, the application,
maybe it's interviews?
Right. So the application period already started. So they'll probably be collecting those and, screening candidates and doing the community outreach. I would think leading up to the January timeframe because they won't do any interviews till probably beginning of January, since we're coming into the holiday season. The city manager mentioned that it's hard to get people from out of town to fly in during holidays to get those things scheduled. So it sounds like we might be seeing some more activity early January, and maybe see some, I don't know if they're gonna have like community meetings or if they're just gonna hold little smaller group sessions with certain people, stakeholders, if you will. So that's at least what they're hoping for.
Yeah, so maybe we'll see a new head of the department hired spring next year, maybe summer, something like that.
Yeah, maybe. From what I understand, they'll keep it open until they find